around him. And the way they fought for Islam, and the way they sacrificed with their lives, the way they sacrificed their time, the way they sacrificed every aspect of their life is indeed an example for us in many ways. But the youth today now has lost the focus. The focus has shifted. And it's shifted from something that is different to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. They've shifted from that focus completely. And the focus has become something else now. Today the focus has become of the things such as, for example, people engaging in Facebook, for example. And these things such as Facebook or so on and so forth, they have great tendencies to lead to haram. And the scholars, they say that which leads to haram, that which leads to something prohibited. Every door that leads to the aspect or something prohibited, then that avenue that took you to that thing which is prohibited is itself prohibited, is itself haram. So, what I'm trying to say is, if something is going to lead you into something unlawful, then that thing becomes unlawful. And what are the youth waiting for? What are they waiting for? Are they waiting for the storm of death? Are they waiting for the storm of death or Malik al-Maut just to come and pluck their lives out? I just want to leave you with just a very vivid image. Hellfire is something which is a reality that no one can dispute. It's part of the articles of faith, you have to believe in it. Imam al-Qurtubi in his tafsir, he mentions many things about the hellfire. I just want to just leave you with a little bit of info as to what he said. The first thing that happens to an individual when anybody enters hellfire and when the doors are still shut behind him is he is bound hands and feet. That's one of the first things that happens. He is bound hand and feet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, خُذُوهُ فَغُلُّوهُ, take him and bind him. One of the first things that happens is he is bound hands and feet. And then the punishments start after that. Hellfire has many elements of punishment and aspects into it, which really was depicted in a really, subhanallah, in a form of the Quran, which is very, very clear. Such as, for example, the food, some of the foods of hellfire, such as zakum, which many of the scholars, they said this will be the food of hellfire, but it will not be food that is nourishing. It will not be food that nourishes you. It will not be food that will make you feel good, but it will be food that will shred your insides. It will literally shred your insides. And there will be hot boiling fluid that a person will be forced to drink. And just the mere fact that when it's elevated to his face will cook from the heat of it. Hellfire is not for the faint-hearted. The Prophet ﷺ said, hellfire burnt for 1,000 years until it turned red. Then it burnt for another 1,000 years until it turned white. And then it burned for another 1,000 years until it turned black. And now it is pitch black. And who has seen black flame? Who has seen black flame? No one has seen black flame. They were sitting with the Prophet one day, ﷺ, and they heard a thump. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said to them, do you know what that thump was? They said, Allah and His Rasul knows best. He said, that was a rock that just hit the bottom pit of hellfire after 70 years. They said, Ya Rasulullah, are the rocks of hellfire like the rocks of this dunya? He said, no. He said, the rocks of the hellfire are like this. He said, if you were to gather all the mountains of this world and combine them, that is just one of the rocks of the hellfire. All the mountains of the dunya. Hellfire, there are many, many mechanisms in it. Imam al-Qurtubi, he mentioned a story in it that he said people in hellfire will call for Malik, they will call for Malik, they will want some help, they're looking for anything to gain some assistance. And he will take 500 years to respond. And the time of 500 years is not like the time that we know. It's vastly different. It's completely different. So these are real aspects, these are real things that are going to happen. So what are people waiting for? What are people waiting for? Many, many questions from the youth. And you can tell that the focus has completely shifted from what it should be. From what it should be. Allah has subjected you to something. And He wants something from you. And He has threatened you with hellfire. In hellfire, there are valleys. And one valley is split into 70,000 valleys. And one of those 70,000 is split into another 70,000. And in hellfire, there's a valley known as Wade, which the ulama also mentioned, where even the people of hellfire seek refuge from Allah, refuge in Allah from that valley 400 times a day. 400 times a day. So hellfire is very serious. It's very serious. There are consequences for our actions. And one of the first things that you will be asked on the day of judgment is about prayer, but one of the questions also will be about your youth. What did you do with your youth? What did you do when you were young and capable? How did you occupy this period? How did you occupy this time? Did you waste this time? Did you burn this time? Some people say, let's waste time. Time is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a privilege from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are consequences for wasting your time. And hellfire is just one of them. Allah always in the Quran, He talks about hellfire in many severe ways. In one way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا لَا يُخَفَّ عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابُ وَلَهُمْ يُنظَرُونَ. Allah was referring to the kafir here in hellfire. He was referring to those people who die non-believers. But it still depicts an aspect of hellfire. He says, وَلَهُمْ يُنظَرُونَ. You know, sometimes when a person, you know, maybe when he was young and his dad was going to get the stick and beat him, and he would say, hang on, let me explain myself. Let me explain, give me some time. Hellfire is not like that. You will not be given an opportunity to explain yourself. You will not be given an opportunity to say, wait, or explain. It is constant punishment. The punishment will not be lifted from an individual. So what are the people waiting for? The storm of death and then the storm of hellfire? It's an important time. And it's a significant thing that every single person, he understand that these are the consequences. And he change. And that he make that change within his heart. And that he connect to Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mention these things in vain, just for nothing. They are mentioned for a reason. They are true and they will happen. And when hellfire is brought forth, and the people see hellfire being brought forth, everyone will drop to their knees out of awe of what they're seeing. This is not a laughing matter, and this is not a joke. This is something to be taken seriously. Our religion is something to be taken seriously. It is a way of life, and it is something that is to be done and not neglected, and the focus needs to be brought back to that. May Allah accept our Ramadan.